Imagine this person with me. They're smart, they work hard. They've been with the same company for the past 12 years. And thus, over that time, they accumulated a significant amount of company stock through RSUs that vested every quarter, through an employee stock purchase plan, or through options they exercised years ago when the price was low. Additionally, because their company has performed so well throughout the time they've been with them, they also got to watch their wealth grow significantly. Now, sometimes they did feel uncomfortable that so much of their net worth was tied to a single company. But they dismissed that feeling, telling themselves they would diversify one day when the time was right, when the tax situation made more sense, or when they felt more certain about where things were headed. Then one morning, their world was turned upside down when the CEO announced a net loss of $1.6 billion and the elimination of 15,000 jobs during an earnings call. The stock took a nosedive, and by the year's end, the stock ended up losing more than 60% of its value from its peak. And our friend, they not only ended up losing their job, their net worth, because most of it was tied to a single company, was completely devastated. Now you might think, Tay, that's an interesting story and all, but who cares about hypothetical stories like that? Well, it actually isn't that hypothetical. The specific scenario that I just covered, it actually happened very recently, in 2024, to tens of thousands of real people that work for, are you ready for it? Intel. Yes, the company that literally invented the microprocessor, the chip that made the modern computer possible, the company that powered the personal computing revolution for half a century. Let's start with some research around individual stocks. A researcher named Hendrik Bessenbinder at Arizona State University spent years studying every publicly traded company in the United States dating back to 1926. More than 25,000 stocks in total. What he found was this. Just 4% of those companies account for all the net wealth creation in the entire US stock market since 1926. The other 96% of stocks collectively return no more than a treasury bill over their lifetime. And the median stock's lifetime return was actually negative. That finding is actually quite fascinating if you think about it. The fact that the middle stock, not the worst stock, the average median stock, actually lost money over its entire publicly traded life. The stock market as a whole has been one of the greatest wealth building tools in human history. That is a fact. But what this data shows is that almost all the wealth was driven by a small sliver of the market. To be more specific, it was driven by fewer than 1,100 companies out of more than 25,000 that have ever traded. Fascinating, right? The other 96% as a group added nothing above what you would have earned just sitting in treasury bills. Now, you might be wondering, Tay, if the data is so clear, why do so many people still feel confident holding a concentrated position in a single stock? A big part of the answer comes down to the stories that we hear, but more importantly, the ones that we don't. Now, before I continue, if the research I just shared made you think, okay, so if individual stocks are so risky, what should my portfolio actually look like? I built something for you. It is called the 3-Fund Portfolio Visualizer, and it is completely free. You can plug in your own allocation across US stocks, international stocks, and bonds, and it will show you historical performance, annual returns, and how your money would have grown over time. The link is in the description below. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to be in a community of professionals who are serious about building long-term wealth, not chasing the next hot stock, come check out the Financial Tortoise community, a private membership for people who are focused on building real, lasting wealth the right way, slow and steady. However, in order to maintain the experience the highest quality, I only open enrollment a few times a year. So if you'd like to be the first to notify when doors open next, join the waitlist at financialtortoise.com/community. I'll have the link in the description below. Alright, now back to the question I was just asking. If the data is this clear, why do so many people still feel confident holding a concentrated position in a single stock? A big part of the answer comes down to the stories we hear, but more importantly, the ones that we don't. Let's talk about why we only remember the winners. I'm sure we all found ourselves in situations like this at one point or another. I like to call it the NVIDIA story situation. You're at work, somewhere between your 4th and 5th meeting of the day, and you overhear a conversation happening a few seats over. A couple of your colleagues are talking, and one of them is explaining that their brother-in-law went all in on NVIDIA in 2019. And because of that, he's now sitting on $1.7 million. So he's going to quit his job, retire, and travel the world. All because he acted boldly on a conviction. Both nod and say something like, man, can you imagine? And afterwards, you have a really hard time staying focused. Why? Because you're now thinking about that $1.7 million. You can't get it out of your head. And you wonder, how? And could I? Should I? I feel some convictions about a few companies these days. Should I go all in? I probably should, right? I want to retire too. Does this sound and feel familiar? This feeling that we missed the boat. Feeling like everyone else is moving forward, but we're stuck. Well, I want to pour some honest juice here. Yes, the FOMO feeling is real, but I want to tell you, there is no reason you should feel compelled to act because of it. Why? Because there's so much that is being left out of that conversation. What is being left out are hundreds of other stories where people who made similar conviction bets but ended up losing everything. Because the truth is that for every "I retire from investing in Nvidia" story, there are hundreds of other stories that say the opposite. I lost everything. But of course, we hardly ever hear those stories. Why? Because we only want to hear the stories of winners, not the losers. I mean, who want to hear stories like, "Hey, did you hear about my brother-in-law who concentrated all his wealth in one stock and lost everything?" This is why we need to diversify and focus on slow and steady path to wealth. No, that story is too boring. Thus, such stories never come to the surface. And so what we're left with is a completely distorted picture of reality. This is called survivorship bias, and is one of the most powerful forces shaping how people think about concentrated stock positions today. We don't see the full picture. We only see the ones people bring to the surface. Now, with that in mind, I want to take this a step further, because a lot of people look at Nvidia today and say, "But this company is special. It is different. Do you know what is happening with AI these days? It's too big, too important to fail." Well, let me show you what history has to say about that. Let's take a little trip down history lane and talk about companies that we essentially said the same thing about. Companies that felt prominent at the time. Every era has its own version of the untouchable company. The ones that feel so dominant, so powerful, that betting against it seems almost irrational. Thus, many people held concentrated positions because they thought they were betting on something that felt so right. The problem is that the future often does not shape out the way we think or we wish. Take BlackBerry, for example. In the mid-2000s, if you worked in any kind of an office, it was almost a necessity that you had one. At the time, BlackBerry was not just a phone, it was the phone. Governments used it, executives depended on it, and professionals swore their life on it. Thus, at its peak, BlackBerry held more than 40% of the US smartphone market. If you had asked someone holding BlackBerry stock in 2007 whether they were worried, they would have looked at you like you were crazy. Then what happened? The iPhone arrived, and BlackBerry stock value dropped by more than 96%. Everyone who placed a significant chunk of their bet on this one company watched their net worth just vanish away. Okay, then you might say, BlackBerry was already playing on the edges of technology. Of course, its downfall was obvious. They were already playing on shaky grounds. If so, are companies that are not at the bleeding edge of technology immune? Let's talk about General Electric. For most of the 20th century, GE was not considered a risky stock. It was considered the opposite, a symbol of stability. A company so large, so diversified, manufacturing, aviation, healthcare, finance, that it felt close to an index than a single stock. Most people who held it were not making a bold bet. They were making what it felt like the most conservative, most responsible choice available. But from 2000 and on, it went on a slow, painful unraveling and was even removed from the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The company that stood for stability became one of the most striking examples of decline. Now you might be sitting here thinking, okay, Tay, GE was a massive industrial conglomerate, a complex business that got too big to manage. That is a very specific kind of failure. What about a company that is not complicated? What about a company that is simply part of everyday American life, like AI today? Well, for that, let's discuss Sears. For most of the 20th century, Sears was not just a store. It was where America shopped. Before the internet, before Amazon, if you needed something, anything, you went to Sears. It was so embedded in everyday American life that the idea of it disappearing felt almost absurd. The same way people feel about certain companies today. But what happened? Its value didn't just decline. It went extinct. Sears filed for bankruptcy in 2018, and the people who held concentrated positions in Sears, many of them employees who had spent their entire careers there, watched it all go with it. So what is the lesson here so far? It is to recognize that no company is ever too innovative, ever too big, or too dominant to fail. Additionally, when you hear the Nvidia retirement story, you're only hearing the version people want to tell. Yes, Nvidia may continue to dominate and continue to grow, but it may also not. The truth is that when it comes to the future, there's so much more that we do not know than we know. So personally, I'd rather accept and embrace that fact and build a strategy that sets me up for success no matter what happens to one individual company. Alright, but I want to take this concentration danger another step further because there are individuals who are most dangerously exposed to this risk. And that is the person who not only holds a concentrated position in a single company stock, but who also works there. Let's discuss dual risks, one company. When you hold a concentrated position in the stock of a company you also work for, you're not carrying just one risk, you're carrying two. The first risk is your income. Your salary, your bonus, your financial stability. All of it depends on that company continuing to perform. The second risk is your portfolio. The wealth you have built up over years of vesting and holding. That depends on the same company too. Under normal circumstances, those two things feel separate, but they're not. They're tied to the same engine, and when that engine stalls, both break down at the same time. That is exactly what happened to Intel employees in 2024. The company reported a $1.6 billion net loss, cut its dividends, and announced the elimination of more than 15,000 jobs all in the same quarter. Thus, the people who held concentrated Intel stock did not just watch their portfolio fall 60%, they lost their paycheck too, all at the same time. Now contrast it with someone else who worked at Intel but held a diversified index fund instead of company stock. They lost their job too. That pain was the same, but their portfolio, their net worth, spread across thousands of companies, wasn't hit as hard. Now, some of you watching this video might be saying at this point, isn't this all obvious? Survivorship bias, too big to fail, dual risk? And I would actually agree with you. Most people actually understand the issues with stock concentration fairly well, if not objectively, at least intuitively. But a lot of people still remain stuck despite knowing they should diversify. So let me cover that next. Why more people don't act. The first reason that freezes many people is what I would call the identity trap. For employees, holding company stock is not purely a financial position. It is a statement. It is a declaration of belief in what they're building. Selling feels like betrayal, or like admitting the company might fail, or like separating themselves from the culture that has defined many years of their professional life. At companies with strong culture like Apple, Microsoft, or Nvidia, this feeling is especially powerful. The second reason that freezes them is the tax. And this one is totally rational. When someone looks at a position they acquired at $40 a share that is now trading at $180, the capital gains calculation becomes overwhelming. Depending on the size of the position, the state, and the bracket, selling can mean writing a pretty big check to the IRS. So they wait. They tell themselves they'll find a better year, a lower income year, a different situation. All the while, the position keeps growing. The third reason that freezes them is the fear of being wrong in hindsight. This is the Nvidia fear. What if I sell and the stock doubles from here? What if the position I've been carrying for 8 years turns out to be one of the 4% that the research identified and I sold it at exactly the wrong time? This is not paranoia. It is a perfectly rational concern. And it is also the concern that keeps people frozen in place, watching the risk compound, telling themselves that inaction is a safe choice. As you can see here, the problem is not that these people lack information or they don't understand the problem. Many see the risk, but there is still just enough uncertainty to keep them from acting immediately. So they wait. But as we talked about so far, from my perspective, there is so much danger to waiting. So let's talk about what to actually do if you find yourself in this position. The first approach is systematic gradual selling. Rather than making one large decision to sell everything at once, you commit to selling small, defined portions at a time. 10% this year, 15% next year. Whatever makes sense for you from a tax perspective and your timeline. This ensures that you're moving in the right direction without committing to one major dramatic move. The second approach is tax loss harvesting to offset the gains from selling. If you have other positions anywhere in your taxable accounts that are sitting at a loss, even modest losses, those losses can be harvested and used to directly offset the capital gains from selling the concentrated position. Now, this is not a silver bullet if you have a very large concentrated position. The impact will be limited. However, combined with the earlier systematic gradual selling, it can still reduce the tax sting a bit. The third approach is taking advantage of the 0% capital gains bracket. Essentially, if you ever find yourself where your income is significantly lower than usual, a sabbatical, a gap between job, and early retirement transition, in that window, you can sell a portion of the concentrated position and pay zero federal tax on the gain. Now, this is not a strategy for everyone because it requires planning and it requires the right income year. But for the people it fits, it can be a powerful move. Having a concentrated position in one or two stocks can have tremendous upside if you hold the right stock. However, as you saw throughout this video, this is much harder than we think and actually quite risky. So I say, control for the risks that you can control for and mitigate the risks that you can't. Focus on managing your investing costs and diversify as much as you can. Thank you guys for watching. In the line of selling concentrated positions and diversifying, if you want to learn the mechanics of selling investments with minimal capital gains tax, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.